My GF admitted faking her orgasms for years. Now she hears me making her BFF scream. Funny how life comes full circle like that. One minute you're living in blissful ignorance. The next you're discovering your entire relationship was built on little theatrical performances that would make Broadway jealous. I remember exactly where I was standing when my world imploded. Kitchen counter, 2 a.m., scrolling mindlessly through my phone while she slept in our bedroom. 3 beers deep and fighting insomnia when that text notification lit up my screen. Ella messaging this late was unusual. My girlfriend Mia's best friend forever rarely contacted me directly. Hey, I know it's late, but I can't stop thinking about what Mia said at girls' night. You deserve to know. Call me tomorrow if you want the truth. My stomach dropped faster than an elevator with snapped cables. You know that feeling when your body realizes something's wrong before your brain catches up? Like your organs are rearranging themselves to make room for the impending disaster? Yeah, that. I didn't sleep. How could I? Lying next to someone, suddenly feeling like a stranger, tends to keep you wide awake. I watched her sleeping face in the blue-gray darkness, searching for signs of the person I thought I knew. 3 years together. 3 fucking years. Morning arrived with excruciating slowness. I made coffee, movements mechanical, while Mia rushed around preparing for her early shift at the hospital. She kissed me goodbye, oblivious to the fact that my entire world had tilted on its axis. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was calling Ella before the sound fully faded. Her voice was hesitant, apologetic. You should hear it from Mia, but nothing. She told me everything. How Mia had been laughing about it at their monthly wine night. How she'd made it into a funny story for her friends, her long-term boyfriend so clueless in bed that she'd been faking orgasms from day one. Apparently I was sweet but hopeless, and it was easier to fake it than hurt my feelings. 3 years of theatrical moaning and arched backs, performed for my benefit while she remained completely unsatisfied. Have you ever felt the peculiar sensation of your blood simultaneously freezing and boiling? Ice in your veins and fire in your chest? It's a special kind of physical impossibility reserved for moments of pure betrayal. I hung up and sat motionless on our couch, staring at nothing. Our photos on the wall seemed to mock me, every memory replaying with a new, humiliating soundtrack. Every intimate moment recontextualized as a sad little performance for my benefit. The girl I thought I knew, gone, replaced by someone who could look me in the eyes day after day while maintaining such an elaborate lie. The worst part wasn't even the faking. It was the laughing about it with her friends, making me the punchline of her story. The sweet, clueless boyfriend, too incompetent to please her, but too fragile to handle the truth. When she came home that evening, I couldn't even look at her. She noticed immediately. I've never been good at hiding my emotions. Her concerned questions hit me like pebbles against a window, persistent but unable to break through. What's wrong? Did something happen? Talk to me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now she wanted honesty? After 3 years of Academy Award-worthy performances? I finally looked up, meeting her eyes. Her face changed when I told her I'd spoken with Ella. First confusion, then recognition, followed by that particular expression people get when they're rapidly calculating just how much trouble they're in. What exactly did she tell you? Not denial. Not immediately, anyway. Just damage assessment. I'll give her that much. She didn't insult my intelligence by pretending not to know what this was about. The conversation that followed was a masterclass in defensive maneuvering. First came minimization. It wasn't every time. Followed by justification. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Then deflection. Ella had no right to tell you that. And finally, when none of that worked, tears and apologies that felt about as genuine as her orgasms had been. I sat there oddly detached, watching her performance with new eyes. Was this real emotion or just another act? How would I ever know the difference again? It was just a stupid joke I made. I was drunk. They were all talking about their sex lives, and I felt pressured. I exaggerated, but Ella had been specific, detailed, and the look on Mia's face told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a one-time drunken exaggeration. This was my reality. We can fix this, she insisted, reaching for my hand. I'll be completely honest from now on. We can work on things together. Together. The word hung in the air between us, suddenly hollow. The we I thought existed had been a fiction. I pulled my hand away and stood up. Something cold and hard crystallized in my chest. A seed of something I didn't immediately recognize. I need some time, I told her, grabbing my keys and wallet. Don't wait up. I drove aimlessly for hours, radio off, just the sound of tires on pavement, and my thoughts spinning like a centrifuge. The humiliation burned worst of all. How many of her friends knew? Had they all been looking at me with pity when I showed up at gatherings? Poor clueless Jason thinks he's rocking his girlfriend's world while she's mentally planning her grocery list. By the time I returned home, it was past midnight. She was asleep or pretending to be. I took a blanket to the couch, staring at the ceiling, that cold, hard thing in my chest growing larger, taking shape. It wasn't just anger. It was something more focused, more purposeful. The next few days were a special kind of hell. We orbited each other cautiously, her attempts at reconciliation becoming increasingly desperate as my responses remained minimal. I wasn't being strategically distant. I genuinely didn't know what to say or do. Everything felt contaminated. Every memory questioned. Every touch suspect. "We need to talk about this," she pleaded over dinner on the third night. "I made one stupid mistake." One mistake? The audacity nearly made me laugh. This wasn't one mistake. This was 1,000 little lies, day after day, night after night. A deliberate choice made repeatedly. And not just the faking, the mockery, making me the joke. "Was it funny?" I finally asked, my voice unnervingly calm even to my own ears. "When you told your friends about it, did everyone have a good laugh?" Her face crumpled. "Bullseye. It wasn't like that," she insisted, though her eyes said otherwise. "It just came out wrong. No one was laughing at you." Another lie. So easy for her, apparently. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. "Did Ella laugh too?" A flash of something crossed her face. "Annoyance? Jealousy? Why are you so focused on Ella?" An interesting response. I filed it away, that cold, hard thing in my chest shifting slightly. "Sure, she was honest with me. That's more than I can say for you." The argument escalated from there, her defensiveness growing in direct proportion to my detachment. I watched her with strange fascination, like observing an actress whose performance I'd once believed, but could now see the technique behind the emotion. The calculated pauses, the perfectly timed tears. By the end of the week, a decision had crystallized in my mind. This wasn't something to work through or fix. Some betrayals cut too deep for repair. But walking away felt insufficient. The humiliation she'd subjected me to deserved something more. That's when Ella texted again. "Just checking in. Are you okay? Has Mia talked to you?" I stared at those words for a long time, the seed in my chest sprouting its first leaves. Ella, Mia's best friend since college. The one who'd always been slightly on the outside of our relationship, watching with those observant eyes. The one who'd chosen to tell me the truth rather than protect her friend's deception. Interesting. Not great, I replied. Could use a friend right now, actually. Her response came quickly. Of course, anytime. The first tendrils of a plan began taking root in my mind. Something elegant in its simplicity. Something that would make the punishment fit the crime perfectly. If Mia wanted to fake pleasure, fine. But soon she'd hear what the real thing sounded like. And I knew exactly who would be making those sounds. I met Ella for coffee the next afternoon. We'd always gotten along well. She was sharp, funny, direct in a way Mia never was. She had this habit of looking straight at you when you spoke. Like everything you said mattered. It was disconcerting and flattering at the same time. The coffee shop was neutral territory, busy enough for privacy in plain sight. She looked worried when I arrived. Her dark hair pulled back, no makeup, dressed casually in jeans and a faded band t-shirt. No performance, just presence. I'm so sorry, she said immediately. I've been second-guessing whether I should have told you. I shook my head, strangely calm. Yeah, don't be. I needed to know. We talked for 3 hours. About Mia. About me. About the weird hollowness that comes with discovering someone you trusted has been systematically lying to you. Ella listened, really listened, occasionally offering insights that were uncomfortably perceptive. She's always needed to be liked, she said at one point, even if it means creating a version of herself that isn't real. Something about hearing Mia described so accurately by someone else broke the last threads of my attachment. The woman I loved had never existed. I'd been in a relationship with a curated performance. As we were leaving, Ella touched my arm lightly. For what it's worth, I think she's an idiot. Anyone willing to fake happiness instead of working toward the real thing doesn't deserve it when it's offered. Our eyes met, and something electric passed between us. Recognition, understanding, possibility. Would you want to grab dinner sometime? I heard myself asking, the words emerging before I'd fully formed the thought. She hesitated only briefly before nodding. I'd like that. I drove home with my mind racing, the plan taking clearer shape with each passing mile. I wasn't normally the type for revenge. I'd always considered myself the bigger person, the one who walks away with dignity intact. But the image of Mia laughing with her friends, mimicking her fake orgasms for their entertainment, making me the butt of the joke, it changed something fundamental in me. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This was about balance, consequences, the natural order reasserting itself. Dinner with Ella happened 2 nights later. Not at some anonymous restaurant where we wouldn't be seen, but at the small Italian place 6 blocks from the apartment I shared with Mia. The place where the waitstaff knew us by name, where Mia and I had celebrated our anniversaries. Calculated? Absolutely. But no more calculated than 3 years of performative pleasure. Ella looked different that night. Hair down, subtle makeup, a dress that wasn't overtly sexy but suggested rather than concealed. She was nervous, I could tell. Having dinner with her best friend's boyfriend crossed lines, but she'd already crossed the biggest one by telling me the truth. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" she asked as we were seated. "People might talk." I shrugged. Something cold and certain settled in my chest. "Let them." The waiter recognized me immediately, his eyes darting curiously between me and not Mia. I ordered wine with exaggerated confidence, meeting his questioning look with an unwavering stare. Yes, I was here with someone else. Yes, you can tell Mia if you see her. Yes, this is exactly what it looks like. Dinner was surprising. Without the shadow of betrayal hanging over me, I found myself genuinely enjoying Ella's company. She was funnier than I'd realized, with a dry wit that contrasted sharply with Mia's more performative humor. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. She disagreed with me on several topics without making it personal. It felt real in a way that made the last 3 years seem increasingly artificial. We shared dessert, leaning toward each other across the table, voices lowering not for secrecy but for intimacy. Her foot brushed against mine under the table. Accident or intent, I wasn't sure, but I didn't move away. By the time we left, photos of us had undoubtedly been taken, messages sent. The restaurant staff weren't known for their discretion. Within hours, Mia would know. Phase 1 complete. I walked Ella to her car, the night air cool against my face. We stood there awkwardly for a moment, both aware of the line we were approaching. "I had a really good time," she said, keys jingling nervously in her hand. "But I don't want to be part of some revenge plot, Jason." Smart. Director. No pretense. "That's not what this is," I replied, not entirely truthfully, but not entirely lying either. The revenge was already in motion, being seen together, creating questions. But what was happening between us felt separate from that. Unexpected. "Then what is it?" she challenged, those direct eyes holding mine. I took a step closer. "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out." When I kissed her, there was no audience to perform for. No one to impress. Just 2 people connecting in the uncertain space of new possibility. She pulled back first, breathing slightly faster. "This is complicated," I nodded. "Yes, Mia will hate me for this." "Probably." She studied my face for a long moment, then made her decision, pulling me back toward her. "Her loss," she whispered against my lips. I returned home late, not surprised to find Mia waiting up, her face a storm of emotions. My phone had been vibrating with her messages for the last 2 hours. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "And don't lie to me. Maggie's husband saw you at Salvatore's with Ella." I didn't bother denying it. What would be the point? "Sherbina, dinner," I said simply, hanging my keys on the hook by the door. "Dinner," she repeated flatly. "With my best friend." I shrugged, watching her face contort with the special outrage reserved for those experiencing the consequences of their own actions. "You're sleeping with her, aren't you?" she accused, voice rising. "How long has this been going on? Was she fucking you before she decided to tell you that bullshit about me?" The profanity sounded strange in her mouth. Mia rarely swore. It didn't fit the carefully curated image she maintained. The fact that she was losing control of her narrative clearly terrified her. "We had dinner," I repeated calmly. "But it's interesting that your mind immediately goes there. Guilty conscience?" She threw a cushion at me, all pretense of composed dignity abandoned. "You're cheating on me with my best friend and trying to make this my fault?" The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I almost laughed. "I don't know, Mia. Is it real cheating, or am I just faking it?" Her face went white, then red. "That's not the same thing, and you know it. But it was the same, in all the ways that mattered. Trust, honesty, respect." All violated, just in different forms. I headed toward the bedroom, suddenly exhausted. I'm going to sleep. On the couch, she snapped, following me. I'm not sharing a bed with you after you've been with her. I turned slowly, meeting her gaze. I wasn't with her. Not yet. But I'm not sleeping on the couch in my own apartment. Your apartment? She sputtered. I live here too. Then you take the couch, and I replied simply, continuing toward the bedroom. Or don't. Your choice. I closed the door behind me, heart pounding despite my outward calm. Through the wood, I could hear her crying. Genuine tears of distress or another performance? I realized with a strange sense of liberation that I no longer cared. The seed that had taken root in my chest was now growing stronger, leaves unfurling. The plan was moving forward with its own momentum now. Dinner was just the beginning. What came next would teach Mia exactly what she'd thrown away, and exactly what it sounded like when someone wasn't faking it. Phase 2 was about to begin. Morning arrived with Mia's side of the bed empty. Sometime during the night, she had surrendered the battle of wills and taken the couch. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange cocktail of emotions. Satisfaction, guilt, anticipation, doubt. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. The quiet felt like a physical presence, filling the spaces where our normal morning conversation should have been. 3 years together dissolving over a handful of days. I should have felt worse about it. Instead, I felt like I was finally waking up from a long, pleasant dream to find reality sharper and clearer than the fantasy had ever been. I showered and dressed for work while she pretended to be asleep on the couch, her breathing just a little too measured to be genuine. Another performance. I left without saying goodbye. At work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the previous night, not the argument with Mia, but the dinner with Ella. The way she listened, the way she laughed, not at me, but with me. The kiss that felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. How's your morning going? Her text came around 10 a.m., a small digital lifeline in the churning sea of my thoughts. We texted throughout the day, conversations that wandered from serious to absurd with natural ease. No calculation, no performance, just two people connecting in a way that felt startlingly authentic after years of what I now recognized as carefully managed interactions. Mia called me. Her message arrived during my lunch break. 7 times. I haven't answered. I stared at those words, something cold and satisfied settling in my chest. Good. Let Mia feel what it was like to be on the other side of silence and evasion. Let her imagination run wild with possibilities. Let her wonder what was real and what wasn't. You don't have to get involved in this, I texted back, giving her an out, even as I hoped she wouldn't take it. Her response was immediate. I'm already involved, and I made my choice. That night, I came home to find Mia waiting, her hair perfect, makeup flawless, wearing the blue dress I'd once told her was my favorite. The apartment smelled of garlic and basil. She'd cooked my favorite pasta dish. 2 glasses of wine waited on the coffee table. A peace offering, or more accurately, a performance of reconciliation. I thought we could talk, she said, voice gentle, rehearsed. Really talk. I set my bag down slowly, taking in the scene she'd staged. About? Us. What happened? How we fix this? She gestured to the couch, to the spot beside her. An invitation to rejoin the production already in progress. I remained standing. I'm not sure there's anything to fix. Her smile faltered slightly before she recovered. Of course there is. We had one bad issue. Couples work through problems all the time. One bad issue. I repeated, the words hollow in my mouth. You lied to me for 3 years, Mia. Every time we were intimate. And then you made me the joke of your social circle. I've apologized for that. A flash of genuine frustration broke through her composed facade. What more do you want from me? Blood? I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something that sent a strange chill through me. I didn't know this woman, had never known her. The Mia I thought I loved had been a carefully constructed character designed to make me feel good, to make things easy, to avoid the messy reality of authentic connection. I want nothing from you, I said finally. That's the point you're missing. I don't want apologies or promises or pasta dinners or makeup sex that you'll fake your way through. I want nothing. Her eyes filled with tears that might have been genuine. Hard to tell anymore. Because of Ella? One dinner and you're throwing away 3 years? No, I said, a strange calm settling over me. You threw away 3 years. One lie at a time. I'm just acknowledging what's already broken. I walked past her to the bedroom, ignoring her calling my name, the perfect dinner growing cold behind me. I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand. Before I could second-guess myself, I texted Ella. Free tomorrow night? Her response came almost immediately. Yes. What did you have in mind? I smiled at the screen, the plan crystallizing with perfect clarity. My place. I'll cook. There was a longer pause before her reply. Mia? Working night shift at the hospital. 7 p.m. work for you? Another pause. Are you sure about this? Was I sure? The question echoed in my head. What I was contemplating went beyond petty revenge into something more deliberately cruel, using our home, mine and Mia's, as the stage for the next act of this drama. It crossed a line. But then I remembered Mia laughing with her friends, mimicking her fake pleasure for their entertainment. I remembered 3 years of lies. I remembered the look on her face when she realized I knew. Not regret for the deception, but annoyance at being caught. Completely sure, and I texted back. The next day passed in a strange haze of anticipation. Mia and I performed an elaborate dance of avoidance around the apartment, speaking only when absolutely necessary, her attempts at reconciliation growing increasingly desperate as I remained unmoved. She left for her shift at 6:30, her parting words a quiet, "We can't go on like this. We need to talk when I get home." I said nothing, already counting down the minutes until Ella would arrive. I prepared carefully. Changed the sheets, cleaned the apartment, opened a bottle of wine to breathe, started dinner, nothing elaborate, just simple food done well. Music playing softly in the background. Ella llegó precisamente a las 7, mirando nerviosa y determinada. She dressed casually, jeans and a simple top that somehow looked better than any carefully selected outfit. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, her only makeup a touch of something that made her lips shine. "Nice place," she said, glancing around the apartment she'd visited countless times before. But never like this. Never as something other than Mia's friend. I handed her a glass of wine. "Thanks for coming." "This is crazy," she said, but she was smiling as she said it. "You know that, right?" I nodded, taking a sip from my own glass. "Completely insane." "Good," she replied, moving closer. "Sanity's overrated." Dinner was just an interlude, a formality we both knew was simply prelude to what would come after. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily, naturally, but underneath ran a current of anticipation that made every accidental touch electric. When she helped me clear the dishes, her hand brushed mine, and I caught her wrist gently. Our eyes met, and all pretense fell away. "We don't have to do this," I said quietly, giving her one last chance to walk away. She set down the plate she was holding and turned to face me fully. "I've wanted to do this since the day Mia introduced us. I just never thought it would happen like this." The honesty was startling and arousing in its directness. "Like what?" I asked, moving closer. "Like something out of a revenge fantasy," she replied, not backing away. "I should feel terrible about this." "But you don't." Her smile had an edge I'd never seen before. "No, I don't. She's been a shitty friend for years, taking me for granted, using me when it's convenient, playing the victim when she's the one causing problems." She took a deep breath. "This isn't just about you getting even with her. This is about me finally stopping being her backup plan and support system, while she treats everyone around her like props in her personal drama." There was history there I hadn't known about, currents running deeper than I'd realized. This wasn't just my revenge anymore. It was something more complex, with motivations tangled like roots below the surface. I should have cared more about that. Should have questioned whether we were using each other for our own purposes. But when she closed the distance between us, all analysis fell away, replaced by the simple, overwhelming physicality of desire. The bedroom was 15 steps from the kitchen. We took them slowly, each movement deliberate. This wasn't a frantic rush of lust, but something more calculated, each kiss and touch part of a larger design. We were both fully aware of what we were doing and why we were doing it, and that awareness added a sharp edge to every sensation. Her shirt came off first, then mine. Skin against skin, heartbeats accelerating in tandem. When we reached the bed I'd shared with Mia for 3 years, she paused, looking at me with a question in her eyes. "Last chance to back out," she said softly. I answered by pulling her down with me, the weight of her body against mine erasing any last doubts or hesitations. What followed was nothing like the carefully choreographed encounters with Mia. There was awkwardness and laughter, moments of uncertainty followed by discoveries that took my breath away. Ella was vocal, not performatively, but genuinely, each sound reflecting authentic response rather than calculated effect. She directed, requested, adjusted without self-consciousness or artifice. And when she finally came, back arching, fingers digging into my shoulders, face transformed by pleasure, there was no mistaking the reality of it. No performance, no act, just raw, genuine response that made the last 3 years of fakery seem even more hollow by comparison. Afterward, lying together in the quiet darkness, I felt a complex tangle of emotions. Satisfaction, yes. Vindication. But also something unexpected. A sense of connection I hadn't anticipated. This had been meant as an act of revenge, but it had become something else along the way. Something real. "What are you thinking?" she asked, tracing patterns on my chest with her fingertip. That this wasn't what I expected, I admitted. She propped herself up on one elbow, studying my face in the dim light. Disappointed? I shook my head, pulling her closer. The opposite. We dozed off eventually, tangled together in sheets that would carry our scent when Mia returned. Another deliberate cruelty I should have felt worse about. The sound of my phone chiming woke me sometime later. A text from Mia, getting off early. Be home in 20. I showed Ella the message, watching her face as she processed the implications. Do you want me to leave? She asked, no judgment in her voice either way. I considered it. The easier path would be for her to slip away now, leaving me to face Mia alone. The confrontation would come eventually, but it could be delayed, managed on my terms. But that wasn't the plan. That had never been the plan. No, I said finally. Stay. She nodded, understanding everything I wasn't saying. This wasn't just about the pleasure we'd found together. This was about Mia hearing it, seeing it, being confronted with the unvarnished reality of her replacement. Cruel? Absolutely. But a cruelty that matched the crime. We didn't rush to dress or hide the evidence of what had happened. Instead, I turned to her again, pulling her close, my mouth finding hers with renewed purpose. The countdown of Mia's impending arrival added an edge of urgency that heightened every sensation. This time was different, more deliberate, more vocal. Every sound Ella made was genuine, but also pointed, a message being sent. I matched her intensity, caring less about my own pleasure than ensuring hers was unmistakable to anyone who might hear it. When the front door opened 15 minutes later, there was no mistaking what was happening in the bedroom. Ella's cries were reaching their crescendo, my name on her lips, the headboard marking rhythm against the wall. The sound of Mia's keys hitting the floor was audible even through the closed door. Oh my God! Ella susurró, sus ojos anchos con la realización de que Mia estaba realmente en casa. Realmente escuchando esto. Don't stop, I urged, my voice low but intense. Let her hear what real sounds like. Something flashed in Ella's eyes. Hesitation, guilt, excitement, I couldn't tell. But then she nodded, pulling me closer, her sounds growing less restrained as we moved together toward the inevitable conclusion. When it came, there was nothing fake about it. Her body tensed and released in my arms, her cry unmistakably authentic. I followed moments later, the knowledge of Mia listening adding a twisted layer of satisfaction to the physical release. The apartment beyond the bedroom door was deadly silent. I could picture Mia standing there, frozen, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. Her boyfriend and her best friend in her bed, making the sounds she had only pretended to make. What now? Ella asked quietly, her breathing still uneven, her skin flushed. I kissed her forehead gently. Now we face the music. I pulled on jeans and nothing else before opening the bedroom door. Ella borrowed my shirt, the hem hitting her mid-thigh as she followed me out. Mia stood in the middle of the living room, still in her hospital scrubs, her face a mask of shock and fury. Her gaze moved from me to Ella, then back again, taking in our state of undress, the unmistakable aftermath of what she'd heard. Get out of my apartment, she said, her voice deadly quiet, eyes fixed on Ella. Actually, I said calmly, it's my name on the lease. If anyone's leaving, it's you. She turned to me then, something breaking behind her eyes. You did this on purpose, she said, the realization dawning. You wanted me to hear you. I didn't deny it. What would be the point? How does it feel? I asked instead. Hearing what you've been faking for 3 years? That's what real sounds like, Mia. That's what you could have had if you'd been honest instead of treating me like some ego you had to manage. Her face contorted with rage and humiliation. You're disgusting. Bury, both of you. Ella stepped forward, no longer hiding behind me. No, Mia. What's disgusting is lying to someone who loves you for years, then laughing about it with your friends. What's disgusting is making him think something was wrong with him when the problem was your dishonesty. Oh, spare me the righteous act, Mia spat. You've wanted him since day one. This isn't about my relationship. It's about you finally getting what you've been jealous of for years. I glanced at Ella, wondering if there was truth in Mia's accusation. The slight flush on her cheek suggested there might be. Maybe, Ella admitted, surprising me with her candor. But I never lied to him. Can you say the same? Mia turned away, her shoulders shaking. With rage or tears, I couldn't tell. I want both of you gone when I get back, she said, finally heading for the door. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. When I return tomorrow, I expect my apartment to be empty. Your apartment? I echoed, the audacity almost amusing. I pay 70% of the rent. She whirled back, eyes flashing. Do you really want to have that conversation right now? After what you just did? I held her gaze steadily. What I did was show you exactly what you threw away. Consider it an educational experience. She left without another word, the door slamming behind her with enough force to rattle the pictures on the wall. The silence that followed felt like the aftermath of a storm. Ella turned to me, her expression unreadable. While that happened, I nodded slowly, the adrenaline of confrontation beginning to fade, reality setting in. It did. Regrets? She asked, and I couldn't tell if she was asking about my feelings for Mia or what we just done. I considered the question seriously. Should I feel regret? We deliberately set out to hurt someone who had hurt me, an eye for an eye. But in the process, something unexpected had emerged between Ella and me, something that felt more genuine than anything I'd experienced with Mia. No, I said finally. No regrets. She smiled, relieved. So what happens now? With us, I mean. That was the question, wasn't it? What had started as an instrument of revenge had become something with its own momentum, its own potential. But it was built on the foundation of mutual betrayal, not the most stable ground for something lasting. Now, I said, pulling her closer, we figure out if this is just about getting even or if it's about starting something new. Her arms circled my waist, her head resting against my chest. And if it's both? I laughed softly. Then we're in for an interesting ride. The revenge was complete. Mia had heard exactly what I wanted her to hear, had felt exactly the humiliation I'd wanted her to feel. But the story wasn't over. Whatever was happening between Ella and me had taken on a life of its own, separate from its origins in vengeance. Phase 2 had concluded, but Phase 3 was already beginning, shaped by forces I hadn't fully anticipated when I set this plan in motion. The seed that had taken root in my chest was now blooming into something unexpected. Not just satisfaction at revenge accomplished, but possibility for what might come next. The question was whether anything grown from such bitter soil could actually flourish. The apartment felt different the next morning, emptier somehow despite the addition of Ella's presence. We'd spent the night together, a tacit acknowledgement that whatever was happening between us had crossed beyond the boundaries of simple revenge into something neither of us had fully defined yet. What are you going to do about the apartment situation? Ella asked over coffee, wearing nothing but my t-shirt, her legs tucked beneath her on the kitchen stool. There was something surreal about seeing her in this space that had been exclusively Mia's domain for so long. I shrugged, watching steam rise from my mug. I'm not leaving. I pay most of the rent. My name's on the lease. She can figure out her own arrangements. Cold, she said, but she was smiling slightly. Effective, though. That's what it had become about, effectiveness. The cold, calculated dismantling of Mia's carefully constructed world. A world built on performances and lies that had made me the unwitting supporting actor in her production. Now I was writing my own script, and she wasn't going to like her role in it. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. We need to talk about living arrangements. And about what you did. I showed it to Ella, who raised an eyebrow. She still thinks she's directing this situation, doesn't she? Old habits. I replied, setting the phone down without responding. Let Mia wait. Let her wonder. Let her experience what it felt like to be on the receiving end of silence and uncertainty. Ella left for work an hour later, our goodbye kiss lingering with unspoken questions about what exactly we were doing. Revenge? Rebound? Something more authentic than either label suggested? The lines had blurred somewhere between planning and execution. I spent the day in a strange state of suspended animation, waiting for the next confrontation while trying to process everything that had happened. The apartment felt like contested territory now, every object within it charged with new significance. The couch where Mia and I had spent countless evenings, the kitchen where we'd cooked together, the bedroom where she'd performed her elaborate deception for 3 years, the bedroom where Ella's genuine cries had finally shattered the illusion. Mia arrived home earlier than expected, walking through the door with the wary determination of someone entering hostile territory. She'd clearly prepared for this confrontation. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, outfit carefully selected to remind me of what I was throwing away. Another performance. "We need to talk," she said, setting her purse down with deliberate calm. I nodded, remaining seated at the kitchen counter, maintaining the high ground of apparent indifference. "So talk." Her rehearsed composure flickered slightly at my tone. "What happened yesterday was unacceptable." "Which part?" I asked, genuinely curious about where she'd placed the emphasis. "The part where I slept with your best friend? Or the part where you heard her experiencing what you've been faking for 3 years?" Color flooded her cheeks, anger, embarrassment, or both. "You did that deliberately. You wanted me to hear." "Yes," I admitted, no point in denying the obvious. "I did." My honesty seemed to throw her off balance. She'd clearly expected denials, justifications, perhaps even apologies. The calm acknowledgement of intent left her momentarily speechless. "Why?" she finally managed, her voice smaller than before. I took a sip of my water, considering the question seriously. "Because you made me a joke. You lied to me in the most intimate way possible, then shared that lie as entertainment with your friends. You didn't just fake orgasms, Mia. You faked our entire relationship." "That's not fair," she protested, the script she'd prepared clearly falling apart in the face of my directness. "I cared about you. I still care about you. You just thought I was too fragile to handle the truth." I finished for her. "So instead of helping me become a better partner, you decided lying was easier. Then you had the audacity to make me the punchline when talking to your friends." She sank onto the couch, the perfect posture crumbling. "It wasn't like that, wasn't it?" I pushed away from the counter, standing to my full height. "Tell me something, Mia. In those 3 years, did you ever once consider just being honest with me? Saying, 'Hey, this isn't working for me. Let's try something different.' Or was the performance easier than the vulnerability that real intimacy requires?" Her silence was answer enough. "That's what yesterday was about," I continued, finding a strange calm in finally speaking these truths. "Showing you the difference between performance and reality, between fakery and authenticity." She looked up, something hard crystallizing in her eyes. "With my best friend? How convenient that your little object lesson also satisfied what was obviously a pre-existing attraction." I shrugged, refusing to be baited into defensiveness. "Ella was honest with me when you weren't. That's attractive." "So what now?" she asked, gesturing vaguely around the apartment. "You think we're just going to quietly divide our belongings and go our separate ways?" "That would be the adult approach," I replied. "Unless you'd prefer more drama?" Her laugh was sharp, humorless. "You fucked my best friend in our bed and made sure I heard every moment of it. I think we're well past adult approaches, don't you?" "Fair point." I conceded it with a slight nod. "Then what do you want, Mia?" "I want you to suffer," she said simply, all pretense of reconciliation gone. "I want you to feel even a fraction of the humiliation you put me through yesterday." I studied her face, searching for the woman I thought I'd known for 3 years. She wasn't there. Maybe she never had been. "I've been suffering for 3 years," I said quietly. "I just didn't know it. Living with someone who thought so little of me that lying seemed like the only option. Being the joke that everyone knew about except me. That's its own kind of suffering, Mia." Something flashed across her face, perhaps the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in days. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold determination. "I'm not leaving this apartment," she stated flatly. "My name may not be on the lease, but I've paid rent for 3 years. I have tenant rights." "I'm not asking you to leave immediately," I replied, surprising her. "Take the time you need to find a new place. We're both adults. We can coexist temporarily." Her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Just like that? You're being weirdly reasonable for someone who orchestrated yesterday's little performance." I smiled slightly. Yesterday was about balance. About consequences. That's been achieved. Now it's just practical matters. She didn't believe me, of course. Her eyes said as much. But she nodded slowly, apparently willing to accept the temporary truce. "One condition," she said, standing up. "Ella no viene aquí." "Not while I'm still living here?" A reasonable boundary, all things considered. I nodded. "Agreed." She gathered her purse, heading toward the bedroom. Our bedroom, now reclaimed as hers even if temporarily. At the doorway she paused, turning back with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You know she's just using you to get back at me, right? Ella's always been jealous. Always wanted what I had. This isn't about you. It's about her finally getting something of mine." The barb was precisely aimed, designed to plant seeds of doubt about Ella's motives. I had to admire the tactical precision, even as I recognized the manipulation. Maybe, I conceded. Or maybe she was tired of watching you treat people like props in your personal drama. Including her. Mia's smile tightened. Believe whatever makes you feel better about fucking your girlfriend's best friend. She disappeared into the bedroom, the door closing with pointed restraint. No dramatic slam this time. Just the quiet click of someone who believed they still held cards to play. I texted Ella immediately. Temporary living arrangement established. Condition, you can't come to the apartment while she's still here. Her reply came quickly. Expected. My place is all yours whenever you want. How are you feeling? An unexpectedly complex question. How was I feeling? Vindicated, certainly. The look on Mia's face when she'd admitted to hearing Ella's genuine pleasure had provided exactly the satisfaction I'd sought. But there was more, a strange emptiness where the anger had been, as though revenge had created a vacuum rather than filling something. Complicated, I replied honestly. You? Same. Dinner tonight? We should probably talk about everything. Everything. The word encompassed so much. What had happened, why it had happened, what it meant going forward. Whether this was just the aftermath of revenge or the beginning of something with its own integrity, separate from its origins. Definitely. Your place, 7 p.m.? Perfect. I'll cook this time. I set the phone down, aware of the muffled sounds of Mia moving around in the bedroom. Two separate lives now unfolding in parallel within the same space. Temporarily overlapping, but already diverging toward different futures. The next 2 weeks unfolded in a strange domestic ballet of avoidance. Mia and I established unspoken schedules, timing our use of common spaces with careful precision to minimize interaction. When we did cross paths, conversation was limited to practical matters. On the surface, surprisingly civil. Underneath, charged with unresolved emotion. Meanwhile, Ella and I spent most evenings at her place, our relationship evolving in quiet increments. What had begun as an instrument of revenge was developing texture and dimension beyond that initial purpose. We talked, really talked, about things Mia and I had never discussed. About expectations and insecurities. About what honesty actually looked like in practice rather than theory. Do you think we're making a mistake? Ella asked one night, her head resting on my chest, the question vibrating against my skin. Building something on a foundation of revenge? I stroked her hair, considering the question seriously. Maybe, but I'm not sure we're building on that foundation anymore. It feels like we've moved to different ground. She propped herself up on one elbow, studying my face in the dim light. You still care about her? Not a question. An observation. 3 years leaves marks, I admitted. But caring about what happened isn't the same as wanting it back. She nodded, settling back against me. Ghost feelings. I get it. Ghost feelings. The perfect description for those phantom emotional responses that lingered after the substance was gone. I felt them when I passed Mia in the apartment. Automatic responses programmed over years, triggered by her presence but no longer connected to genuine emotion. What about you? I asked. Mia said you've always been jealous of her, that this is about taking something that was hers. Ella was quiet for so long I thought she might not answer. When she did, her voice was thoughtful, measured. There's probably some truth in that, she admitted. Mia has always been the star of every story, you know? The one people gravitate toward. The one who gets what she wants. And yes, when she started dating you, I noticed you. Thought you deserved better than her performance art version of a relationship? She shifted, meeting my eyes directly. But that's not why I'm here now. I'm here because when we're together, it feels real in a way most things don't. If that started as something petty or vengeful, it's become something else. At least for me. I kissed her then. No words adequate to respond to that level of honesty. The ghost feelings for Mia seemed to fade a little more with each passing day, replaced by something more substantial with Ella. Something built on the radical concept of simply being ourselves and seeing if that was enough. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Mia announced she'd found a new place. Her voice was casual as she mentioned it over breakfast, as though informing a roommate rather than a soon-to-be ex-boyfriend. I'm moving out on Saturday, she said, not looking up from her coffee. I've already boxed most of my things. I nodded, a strange sense of finality settling over me. Need help with anything? She finally looked up, surprise flickering across her face. No. My brother's coming with his truck. An awkward silence stretched between us. 3 years of shared history hanging in the balance. Are you and Ella? She let the question trail off, not quite able to finish it. Yes, I said simply. No point in pretenses now. We're seeing where it goes. She nodded slowly, something complicated happening behind her eyes. I hope she's more honest with you than I was. The closest thing to an apology I was likely to get. I accepted it with a slight nod. I hope your next relationship is more honest too, Mia. On both sides. A truce of sorts established in the ruins of what we'd once had. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Recognition that what had happened between us was the product of mutual failure. Her dishonesty and my willingness to accept the performance without questioning it. Saturday arrived with rain that seemed appropriately symbolic for endings. Mia's brother and two of her friends, not Ella obviously, helped load boxes and furniture into a rented truck. I stayed out of the way, offering help when needed, but otherwise maintaining a respectful distance. As the last box was carried out, Mia lingered in the doorway, keys in hand. 3 years reduced to a moment of awkward silence. I guess this is it, she said finally, holding out the keys. I took them, our fingers not quite touching in the exchange. I guess so. She hesitated, clearly wanting to say something more, but unsure how to frame it. Finally, she settled on, take care of yourself, Jason. You too, Mia. Simple words for a complex ending. She nodded once, then turned and walked away, the door closing behind her with quiet finality. I stood in the suddenly empty-feeling apartment, aware of the spaces where her things had been. The silence felt different now, no longer charged with avoidance and unspoken recriminations, but open, waiting to be filled with whatever came next. I texted Ella. She's gone. Her response came immediately. How are you feeling? That question again. How was I feeling? The revenge that had consumed me weeks ago now seemed distant, the satisfaction of it hollower than I'd anticipated. Not regret exactly, but recognition that vengeance, however justified, leaves its own marks on the one who executes it. Ready to move forward, I replied finally. Come over? On my way. When she arrived 30 minutes later, arms full of takeout and wine, it felt like crossing a threshold. This wasn't about Mia anymore. It wasn't about revenge or getting even or proving points. It was just about us. Two people trying to build something authentic from complicated beginnings. Welcome to the post-Mia era, I said, taking the food from her hands. She smiled, stepping fully into the apartment that was now truly mine alone. Brave new world. We ate on the couch, talking about nothing and everything. The ghost of what had happened gradually fading into the background. Not gone completely, it would always be part of our origin story, for better or worse, but no longer the main focus. Later, in the bedroom that had been the stage for both deception and revelation, Ella and I created new memories to overlay the old ones. No performances, no agenda, no audience real or imagined. Just two people learning each other, moment by moment, with all the awkwardness and beauty that genuine connection entails. Afterward, lying together in comfortable silence, I realized something important. The seed of revenge that had taken root in my chest weeks ago had transformed into something else entirely. Something less bitter, more hopeful. A different kind of growth altogether. What are you thinking about? Ella asked, tracing patterns on my skin. That revenge is a weird foundation for a relationship, I admitted. But maybe it's not about the foundation. Maybe it's about what you build on top of it. She laughed softly. Are we mixing metaphors or actually having a profound moment here? Pray both, I decided. Definitely both. She propped herself up, looking at me with those direct eyes that had been the first thing to draw me to her. For what it's worth, I think what we're building is its own thing now. Not defined by how it started. I pulled her closer, feeling something settle into place inside me. I think you're right. The story of Mia's betrayal and my revenge would always be there, woven into the fabric of whatever Ella and I became to each other. But it was no longer the main thread, just one strand among many in a pattern that was still taking shape. 4 weeks later, I ran into Mia at a coffee shop across town. Pure coincidence, the kind of random intersection that cities create despite their size. She was with someone I didn't recognize. A man about my height, but otherwise nothing like me. They were laughing about something, her hand resting casually on his arm. Our eyes met across the crowded space. A moment of recognition, of adjustment. The ghost feeling stirred briefly, then settled. She nodded slightly, a gesture somewhere between acknowledgement and goodbye. I returned it, then turned away, neither of us making any move to approach the other. Some stories don't need epilogues. Some endings are better left as endings. I ordered my coffee and left, stepping out into the bright afternoon sunlight. Ella was waiting for me at the restaurant 2 blocks away, probably already engrossed in her book, absently twirling her hair the way she did when she was focused. Real, present. Genuine. As I walked, I felt the last tendrils of bitterness finally release their hold on my heart. Revenge had been sweet, yes. The look on Mia's face when she realized what was happening. The sounds of Ella's genuine pleasure filling the apartment that had only known fakery before. The perfect symmetry of the punishment fitting the crime. But what came after revenge, that was sweeter still. The slow, sometimes awkward, always authentic process of building something real with someone who valued honesty over performance, who saw me clearly and showed herself clearly in return. My GF admitted faking her orgasms for years, and now she hears me making her BFF scream. A perfect revenge narrative, a satisfying arc of betrayal and retribution. But the real story wasn't in the revenge itself. It was in what happened after the credits would normally roll. In the quiet, unglamorous work of figuring out if something that began as vengeance could transform into something with its own integrity, its own truth. I quickened my steps, suddenly eager to reach the restaurant, to see Ella looking up from her book, her face lighting with recognition, to continue the story that had started in such unlikely circumstances, but was now writing itself in directions neither of us could have anticipated. Revenge might have been the catalyst, but it wasn't the conclusion. Just the unexpected beginning of something far more interesting than getting even could ever be. 6 months can change everything or nothing at all, depending on how you measure time. In my case, it was somewhere in between. A stretch of days where the big dramatic moments faded and real life filled the spaces between. Ella and I settled into something that stopped feeling like a revenge plot and started feeling like an actual relationship. The kind built on mundane Tuesday nights and shared grocery lists rather than dramatic declarations. The kind where you discover her weird habit of organizing the refrigerator by color. Seriously, who does that? And she learns about your irrational hatred of the sound of wooden spoons against metal pots. The kind where honesty isn't just about big revelations, but the small daily choice to be yourself, even when it's awkward or inconvenient. The story of how we got together became something we rarely discussed. An origin tale too complicated for casual conversation, too loaded with history to be easily unpacked. When people asked, we developed a simplified version. Met through a mutual friend. Had a connection. Started dating. Technical truths that skipped the messy parts. But sometimes late at night, the reality of how we began would surface between us. Not with regret exactly, but with a kind of bemused acknowledgement of the unlikely path that had led us to each other. Do you ever feel bad about it? She asked once, her head on my chest, her question vibrating against my skin. About how we started? I considered lying. Considered the easy answer that would smooth over the complexity. But that would be falling back into old patterns. Choosing performance over authenticity. Sometimes, I admitted, running my fingers through her hair. Not about the end result, but about the deliberate cruelty of it. We wanted her to hurt. She was quiet for a long moment, and I appreciated that she didn't rush to dismiss the reality of what we'd done. We were both angry. Me longer than you even knew. That doesn't make it right. No, she agreed. But it makes it human. Human. Such a simple word for such a complicated state. All the mess and contradiction. The capacity for both cruelty and kindness, pettiness and generosity. The ability to hurt those who hurt us, then question whether the satisfaction was worth the cost to our own humanity. I saw Mia occasionally around the city. Not often. We traveled in different circles now. But enough to mark the passage of time through changes in her appearance or companions. She cut her hair short in October. Started dating someone who looked unnervingly like my college roommate by November. Got a promotion at the hospital in February that had her picture in the local paper. Each sighting triggered less and less emotional response. The ghost feelings fading to mere shadows, then to nothing at all. Just the recognition of someone I used to know. We never spoke, not directly. But there was a strange evolution in our silent acknowledgments when our paths crossed. From the initial charged tension to a kind of neutral recognition to, eventually, something almost like distant goodwill. The kind of non-relationship you have with someone who once meant everything and now exists in a different universe that occasionally overlaps with yours. Ella remained friends with some of Mia's social circle, those connections too established to be completely severed by the drama of our beginning. Through this grapevine, we heard that Mia sometimes referenced her relationship with me as a learning experience, that she'd started being more direct in her current relationship, that she'd made some comment about how sometimes it takes losing everything to figure out what matters. Growth, maybe, or just a new performance. I found that I no longer needed to know which. My own growth was less quotable, but equally real. Learning to identify the difference between authenticity and performance in myself, as well as others. Recognizing how often I'd settled for surface-level connection out of fear or convenience. How easily I'd accepted Mia's performance, because it hadn't required vulnerability from me either. Revenge had been sweet, yes, but it had also taught me something uncomfortable about myself. How easily righteousness can become its own kind of performance. How vengeance can make us into versions of ourselves we don't necessarily want to become permanent. We're not who we were 6 months ago, Ella said once, as we stood in the kitchen of my apartment. Our apartment now, technically, since she'd moved in the month before. That's the thing about time. It keeps moving, whether you're ready or not. She was right. The Jason who had orchestrated that elaborate revenge scene was still me, but also increasingly a past version of me. A photograph fading at the edges rather than an active state of being. I could remember his anger, his need for vindication, his calculated cruelty, but I didn't feel them with the same immediacy. What remained wasn't regret exactly, more like recognition. Acknowledgement that stories don't end with the climactic confrontation or the perfectly executed revenge. They continue into the quiet after, where you have to live with both what was done to you and what you did in response. Last week, a package arrived at our door. No return address, just our names printed in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a small potted plant. Not flowers, nothing romantic, just a simple, hardy succulent, and a card with 3 words, "Grow something better." We knew who it was from. Didn't need to discuss it. Just placed the plant on the windowsill, where morning sun would reach it, its presence neither a complete absolution nor an erasing of history. Just an acknowledgement that time moves forward, that new things can grow even in soil that once seemed poison. My GF admitted faking her orgasms for years, and now she hears me making her BFF scream. It made for a perfect revenge story, the kind you tell over drinks to sympathetic friends who cheer your retribution and validate your righteous anger. But the real story wasn't in those dramatic moments of revelation and revenge. It was in what came after. The quiet, unglamorous work of building something genuine from complicated beginnings. Of recognizing that the most authentic connections often emerge not from perfect circumstances, but from the mess of real human interaction, with all its flaws and contradictions. Ella and I aren't perfect. We argue about stupid things like which true crime podcast deserves our limited listening time, or whether ketchup belongs in the refrigerator or pantry. We carry the complications of our beginning in ways that occasionally surface in moments of insecurity or doubt. But we're real. No performances, no calculated responses, no managing of emotions to protect fragile egos. Just 2 imperfect people trying to be honest about who we are and what we want, even when it's awkward or difficult. Sometimes I think about that seed of vengeance that took root in my chest all those months ago. How it grew into something I hadn't anticipated. How revenge gave way to reflection, then to something that looks surprisingly like growth. Turns out even the bitterest seeds can sometimes produce unexpected harvests, not despite the darkness of their origins, but because of the light you choose to give them afterward. That's the thing about stories that begin with betrayal and revenge. The real challenge isn't in executing the perfect retribution. It's in what you choose to grow in the aftermath.